Somehow my microphone got turned off again. Sorry, there we are. And report out in our closed session. We have nothing to report out from that closed session. And if we could have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Harvey. Here. Councilmember Landman.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Vice Mayor Skillman. Here. Mayor DeLasso.
Here. And if you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much for that. And we'll move into our first item, which is approval of minutes from the April 22nd, 2014 regular meeting and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and or adopted under this agenda.
I'd move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Show that it's a 5-0 vote in favor. And we are on to housekeeping items.
For the benefit of everyone in attendance, please observe the following. Silence electronic devices, including cell phones. Audience members are advised that the chamber and hallways carry sound, so please keep conversations to a minimum or conduct them outside the building. Photographs or video recordings using tripods or other means that would be distracting are to be taken only from the designated media area along the west wall of the chamber. Members of the public wishing to address the council are asked to complete a speaker card for each item. Speaker cards are located on the table outside the entrance to the chamber. Place the completed speaker cards in the designated tray located by the Deputy City Clerk. When their name is announced, speakers should come forward to the podium and direct their comments to the City Council.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barrich, comments on this?
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Former City Councilman George Barrich. I'd like to speak on this item for the following reasons again. I've been up at the podium no less than over a year now speaking on this item that the fact is we have no housekeeping items, we have no housekeeping rules, we have no courtesy rules or anything because the City Council has never brought this forward as an official item. They've never discussed this, had the public vet this issue out. And somewhere along the line, these rules or these items have been made up by somebody behind closed doors, and if so, and you had anything to do with it, it is a violation of the Brown Act. Having said that, I would like to suggest maybe a couple new rules. We have the police chief here tonight, and customarily over the years, the police chief was only invited to these meetings in instances where the police chief himself had some role in the meeting as far as making a report to the council at the pleasure of the city manager or the city attorney to ask questions, and oftentimes he left after the meeting. But the fact that the police chief is here at every meeting, I'd like you to make a new rule which says that the police chief should be out doing his job, back at his office, or out on patrol and protecting the people of this town. There's no reason that he should be here. I've been coming to these meetings for no less than 16 years, and I ask any of you, when have you ever seen an incident at these meetings requiring the services of the police chief or a police officer? The answer is never. And the fact is, the council is supposed to be abiding by Robert's Rules of Order, which makes the chairperson of the meeting the official sergeant of arms. It's up to you, sir, if there's a problem, to take care of it, address any disruption in the room, ask people to leave, or settle things down, take a recess. It's not incumbent upon the city council to have the police chief here to bully, to intimidate, falsely detain people, or anything else. And I would like to see a rule saying that that police chief needs to go out and do his job. We're paying him over $200,000 a year. The other thing, another rule I think you should do is you should make it clear in the rules that the city attorney is here for one reason and one reason only, and that is to protect and represent your interests. She's not the last word on the law. Attorneys will often spin the law and refuse to give the full scope of the law in order to protect your interests and reduce your liability if someone's trying to sue you. To turn towards the city attorney and expect her to be the last word in the law is ridiculous. And I think you need to state that she's here to represent you. And we know that sometimes the city attorney is not right about the law because the city has suffered many lawsuits where we have paid out millions of dollars or thousands of dollars in damages. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there, yes? And this is on the housekeeping items?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Deloso, Council. I'm Mike Chiaramello from the City of Dixon. The reason I wanted to speak tonight is I looked at your speaker card, and although you say on here the person is wishing to address the council and not required to identify themselves, you have respectfully requested to complete a speaker card, and on your housekeeping items, it more or less says the same thing. And once again, you do not say that this is optional. You need to have that on your cards to be legal. And this isn't the first time you've been reminded about it, and probably won't be the last time, but you know, it's a consistent thing amongst agencies and councils. They just don't seem to get it. I got into my supervisors down in Solano County. They don't seem to understand the law because they've got a county council down there that's interprets the law the way he sees fit. And I have attorneys from the First Amendment Coalition that see things quite differently. So anyway, just for your own information, I think it would be very simple just to add at the bottom, it's optional, fill this out. Thank you.
And thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the housekeeping items that we have? Yes, sir.
Peter Alexander Cherneff. I just got here a little late, haven't been down here for a while. It's a beautiful town. And a friend of mine mentioned he was coming down, so I traveled along, and he was telling me about George Barrich. I guess that was him speaking a minute ago. And what little I know is this. I says, who can be right if everybody's wrong? And I know that George has brought up a few things on more than a few occasions that certainly require some attention. And that as long as we keep fighting amongst ourselves over sometimes trivial matters, the larger matters become ignored. And you know, you're right down the street from Luther Burbank's hometown, Santa Rosa. He said this is the best place in the world to grow vegetables and fruits, and my AKA Cactus Pete says if we do it the right way, we end all disputes. And it's amazing that the city councils are just simply refusing to address things, and perhaps it's out of their scope, but it should be their concern, which is what's referred to as Monsanto terraforming in the means of chemtrails. It's been going on for well over 18 years.
Can I stop you for just a second? I'll give you your time, I promise. This is more comments on these housekeeping items that were addressed by the city clerk, and there is a section coming up on citizens' business, which would be more appropriate. So we're looking for just if people have comments on, you know, the fact of silencing electronic devices, that list of things that she read off.
I missed that. Could you give me just a quick little things that they were discussing?
There was silencing electronic devices. Audience members advised if you want to have a conversation to please take it outside where the echoing won't occur. Photographs and video, if you could set up over by the media sign.
Okay, I think I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I'll give you a chance.
I'll just briefly conclude with this topic, and then I will address with the other. And that is, he was mentioning about city house attorneys. He's talking about attorneys and lawyers, and I just got done witnessing something really absurd at the Santa Rosa City Council, and my remark to what I saw there with these attorneys going back and forth, the words that came to my mind was tar and feathers. And, you know, I could understand why Shakespeare said what he said about lawyers. I don't suggest at all any violence, but I certainly suggest eliminating the industry of bar attorneys, which are not doing any of us any favors whatsoever. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So is there anyone who would like to address the housekeeping items specifically? All right, seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close the public comment on that and move into announcements. There I go with that microphone again. Every time I touch it, it turns it off. The City of Cotati has special open office hours on Monday and Wednesday evenings from 5 to 7 p.m. in the Community Development Department at City Hall as part of its Cotati Open for Businesses program. This program provides personalized assistance and information to developers, current Cotati business owners, and those interested in starting a new business within the city. The Rohnert Park Cotati Regional Library hosts events for all ages, including art exhibits, book clubs, and children's programs. All events are free and open to the public. For more information, you can call the library at 584-9121 or visit sonomalibrary.org. The Cotati Historical Society Museum is open regularly the second Tuesday of each month from 5 to 7 p.m. For more information, you can call 794-0304. And finally, the Cotati Lions Club will host a Father's Day breakfast on Sunday, June 15, from 7 a.m. to noon at their club headquarters at 86 La Plaza, which is right behind the Rancho Adobe Fire Station. Children under 5 and dads eat free. The cost for everyone else, $10. And now we're going to move into proclamations. The first one is declaring May 2014 as California Building Safety Month. Is there anyone here that would be accepting that proclamation?
We don't have anyone in particular to accept the proclamation, but if you'd like to read the proclamation, that would be great.
I'll do my best at speed reading, and we'll go through this proclamation. Whereas the safety of buildings is essential to the health, safety, and welfare of communities throughout the state, and whereas in an ongoing effort to ensure building safety, California Building Safety Month is recognized annually to provide awareness of the highest construction standards available to California communities. And whereas California Building Safety Month emphasizes the important role the City of Cotati can provide in the development and maintenance of safe buildings in our community. And whereas the City of Cotati, through its Community Development Department, is helping to ensure the public's health, safety, and general welfare by reviewing building construction plans, issuing building permits, and inspecting buildings during and after construction to ensure that they comply with the necessary regulations. Whereas it is through this preventative work that the success of keeping Cotati's structures safe during an emergency is ensured, and whereas the City of Cotati appreciates the understanding and cooperation that exists between the city staff, city officials, and the people they serve relative to encouraging building safety, and whereas cities and counties across California are joining to promote building safety through the observation of California Building Safety Month 2014. Now therefore be it proclaimed on this 13th day of May 2014, the City Council of the City of Cotati hereby declares May 2014 as California Building Safety Month in the City of Cotati. And I have a second proclamation, which is the weekend of May 17th and 18th is Community Resilience Challenge Weekend. Is there? Yes, there is somebody, so please come up. And I'd be delighted to read through this, and then we'll give you an opportunity, but if you want to just come right up to the podium now, that's fine. And this is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Cotati declaring the weekend of May 17th and 18th as Community Resilience Challenge Weekend. Whereas the City of Cotati is concerned about the health and well-being of its residents and seeks to create a healthy, sustainable, and livable community, and whereas in 2005, all Sonoma County cities in the county adopted the boldest community greenhouse gas emissions reduction target in the United States, 25% below 1990 levels by 2015, and whereas last year the 4th Annual Community Resilience Challenge, formerly 350 Home and Garden Challenge, inspired thousands of people across Sonoma County to complete 3,558 actions to save water, grow food, conserve energy, and build community. And whereas the City of Cotati provides, through key partners such as Daily Acts, programs and services that educate residents, students, businesses, and community leaders about sustainable practices, and whereas local government greatly influence the opportunities for growing, eating, and sharing healthy food and becoming more water and energy efficient through key powers over land and water use planning and policies, economic and community development, parks and recreation, and other community services. Now therefore be it proclaimed on this 13th day of May 2014, the City Council of the City of Cotati does hereby declare May 17th and 18th Community Resilience Challenge Weekend in the City of Cotati. Be it further proclaimed that the City of Cotati actively declares its support of the Community Resilience Challenge and its goal to inspire 3,500 actions to save water, grow food, conserve energy, and build community. And if you would just like to introduce yourself, and if you have a few words, that would be great.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Gretchen Schubeck, and I'm the Programs Manager at Daily Acts. Thank you very much for your proclamation this evening. The Community Resilience Challenge is a call to action. Throughout the month of May, Daily Acts has been working alongside nonprofits, municipalities, businesses, and individuals to bring awareness to the need for community-based local solutions to the pivotal issues facing our planet, from our drought to food insecurity to climate change. Together, we are creating a more resilient local food system, economy, and community while reducing our use of water and energy. During the month of May and culminating this weekend, there will be a number of inspired actions and activities happening all across Sonoma County, and participants in the Community Resilience Challenge are playing their part to save water, grow food, conserve energy, and build community by installing gray water systems, sheet mulching lawns, planting gardens, installing water-saving fixtures, hosting potlucks, and moving their money to local banks. Participants are registering their action pledges online, and all actions are being aggregated on a map to build a picture of the growing resiliency movement in Sonoma County, and I highly encourage you to visit our website to have a look at that map because it's pretty awesome. Over the past 4 years, the challenge has grown exponentially from 628 garden actions in 2010 to a whopping 3,500 actions in 2013. Our initial goal for 2014 was 3,500 actions, and I'm super pleased to say that we have blasted right past that goal. As of today, we have 4,120 actions registered. But we want many more people to sign up, yourselves included, and to encourage people to be engaged and to stand up and be counted. The Challenge is a program of Daily Acts whose mission is to transform our communities through inspired action and education that builds leadership and local self-reliance. The 2014 Challenge, formerly known as the 350 Home and Garden Challenge, marks our 5th year of engaging individuals, schools, organizations, municipalities, and businesses to take practical action for a more healthy, just, and resilient future. The challenge is a great way to demonstrate the City of Cotati's commitment to sustainability, as well as to engage your community in this vitally important movement. By encouraging members of the Cotati community to participate in the challenge, we are helping to create more connected, vibrant, and resilient households, schools, and neighborhoods. We are very grateful to the City of Cotati for the proclamation in support of the challenge, and thank you very much for your time this evening.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from council about this? Nope. Seeing none, then I'm going to come down and hand this to you.
And I have left some postcards with information with the city clerk, and there's our website on there. Very good.
And get a picture of you guys. Quick. Yeah.
You're still going to be on that.
And I'm going to open this up for public comment, and I have a card here from Mr. Peter Alexander.
Well, I'm going to be at a meeting. I might as well get my time in. And my nickname is Cactus Pete, often bitter, sometimes sweet. And I'm actually kind of disappointed that no one commented positively on her speech. She's a new hero of mine. I just met her. I've met Wendy, the other gal that did the 350, and I think it's a very impressive and very positive thing for us to encourage even more than we have been. I'd like to add that Luther Burbank's favorite #1 project, which has still maintained a hidden presence of sorts, was his cactus. And even though there's often fungus among us, you do have to practice with cactus, the most underrated food source on land, producing more food per square yard than anything on the planet except perhaps kelp, which has the unfortunate notoriety of now maintaining a degree of radioactivity. So the cactus is of course, most white and black people don't know this, but the people in the Portuguese and the people south of the border know well that if you were to Google cactus recipes, you'd find out real quickly that you can do more with a cactus than you can a potato. And if you want to deal with something that is a drought repellent, once again, it's cactus. Once it's established, you don't have to water it. hardly ever. And it will produce fruits. It produces some wonderful meat. I use the young leaves to make drinks out of them, and you can put them in salads. I've encouraged people to do living cactus fences. Why? Because they're an erosion control, they're a firewall, a food source, a fruit source, a flower source. They're medicinal, they're nutritional, they're frost resistant and drought resistant. And so living cactus fences would go a long way to possibly provide employment for all kinds of people looking for work to do. I mean, can you imagine a couple thousand miles worth of cactus fences on our borders of the streets and borders of properties and properties up on the hills that have fire concerns? And then tending these would be a full-time job if you had that much going, and Luther Burbank would be finally smiling in his grave instead of tearing the rest of his hair out with our foolish farming practices. And you're talking about water, and I've made it very clear that from the spiritual standpoint, from on high, that the commandment against murder was altered, and it always had included animals. And not only is there foolishness involved with the 1951 federal mandate, which incorporated vaccines into all the animals which people think are healthy and we're told are for our benefit, but we're never told about the piggybacked 241 diseases that came out of Fort Detrick and Plum Island, which has delivered all the cancers and diseases just about that we're seeing today in this country. And so, not to mention that these animals, these poor animals, need to drink 40 gallons a day. So we have the ability to do some wonderful things with what this woman before me spoke, and to incorporate the cactus would be demonstrating wisdom of the ages. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Carricker.
I believe it was several years ago I noticed a line item in the city budget when the city was going through some hard times financially, and the line item was daily acts $35,000 per year. This made me curious, especially in a city that won't pay the $8,500 a year for its own police dog, but asks for citizen contributions, like you had to have a bake sale to ensure public safety. So I filed a public record request asking, just what does Daily Acts do? I know they produce flyers, I know they do a couple of workshops, but I asked specifically, can the city show any specific metrics that show tangible results Daily Acts has produced for the $35,000 a year they've gotten for the past X years? The answer was no.
And thank you very much. Again, we were under proclamations, and this was under the Community Resilience Challenge weekend, so if there are any other comments on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our honorary mayor, and I'm going to guess, no offense, but just looking at the average age, that we don't have any middle schoolers out there tonight. I don't want to be rude, but Michael, either Aguirre or Aguirre, no takers. All right, we'll just move on then. And we'll go to the approval of the final agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? There are none. And now we are at citizens' business. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any items listed on the consent calendar or any matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda during this period. Comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for items on the consent calendar. And I am going to go to my speaker cards here, and we'll start with Mr. James Bennett.
Good evening. You know, this little rift with George Barich and the city of Cotati has been well documented in our local newspaper. And I don't know, I guess the simplistic second grade way of saying it would be, he told you so. Because let's face it, the catalyst that prompted your recall and character slander, that you orchestrated was the fact that he didn't want to accept the bribe, TARP money, and said so. And see, that's the spirit of what representative government's supposed to be about, in America anyway. It's supposed to be about celebrating the diversity. That's what you want. I don't agree on your ideas about abortion, but you know what? You really make some sense about that water thing. That's the way it's supposed to be, as opposed to a Soviet model of governance where public officials are identified and installed based on their adherence to the Apex Council. Now, in this case, the Apex Council is our COG, our Council of Government, which is ABAG, which works very closely with ICLEI. It's really not very hard to connect the dots. Now, I don't remember COGs or regionalism or anything like that from civics class, but a lot of what's going on I really don't remember from civics class. But what I know is that what you want is somebody with a spine that'll stand up and speak themselves, speak their mind. And, I have to be honest and say that I don't always get behind the way that George Barich has acted with you. But, given the character assassination and the slimy hatchet job that defined the recall that you spearheaded against him, he might be, what's the clinical term? Pissed. And I think anybody would be pissed. If you really know what's going on and you're awake, forgive me, but this is like dressing up and playing government. You guys are not representing the organic wishes of the people. You're taking directive from this alphabet of groups, ABAG and ICLEI, that are anti-property rights, anti-freedom, anti-small business. The people are going to wake up. And I hope they have a separate smart growth gulag for you guys, because you're not going to be one of the cool kids, I assure you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Peter Alexander.
I'm trying to figure out what to speak about here. I was thinking about the farming and then about the fellow complaining about the lack of money for a police dog. I think it's time for a farm workers, landowners revolt with an alliance with honest law enforcement, and that would greatly be feared by the system. Now, a lot of this stuff that's coming down the pike from the feds is going to happen. But I've said to people, I said, well, we have a nice big old general strike knowing that we are the power in this country, California is, and we can ride a surfboard and have it go in our favor. And I will always say to law enforcement, to honest law enforcement, stand up and be counted and get yourself aligned with Sheriff Richard Mack's constitutional law enforcement organization, which is national and rather impressive. One of his little sayings is, the feds are not my boss. And I see all these counties and cities that are kowtowing to the manipulation that's been presented by the feds any number of ways, so it seems like you have no choice but to go in that direction. And in the case of this not wanting to accept some money, someone stood up and said no. And I submit to you, you might have a little wisdom in researching the reasons why and the depth and the degree of what's going on and how it may impact you down the road, because it'll impact us all. And so I say, it's time to have the shutdown. I'm no fan of lawyers. We don't need lawyers. We need people that know the Constitution. But we've been under martial law since well before 1947. Very few people will actually acknowledge it, but it's a fact. And if it wasn't, we wouldn't have libraries full of laws and codes and lawyers and what have you, and prisons. So it's time to, for those listening, not just those I'm looking at, but the law enforcement that are listening, everyone else, to take a deep breath and say, you know, Sheriff Richard Mack is on the right path, and Officer Jack McLam, R.I.P., did some impressive work with the militarization of cops, and he wrote Vampire Killer back in 2000 or before that, and that's an impressive document to look at. Things will, they're looking to streamline things, but not all for the better for all of us. We're in a most beautiful area, and we should be considering who we are and where we are first and foremost before any allegiance to the feds for any monies or what have you. Because we can turn around, shut the game down, and they will be on their knees to us within 40 days. And that's a prophecy, and it's powerful and it's real. And you know, you have a Native American up there, and I've championed the fact that Leonard Peltier is in prison still because of us, all of us that have no cojones and ovarios to stand up for the general strike, which sets him free, and so too the U.S. Constitution, which was a gift by the Iroquois, and that it is sitting in the prison cell of this man who represents the 500-year indigenous resistance worldwide. So I speak to your hearts, to those before me and those listening, that it is time to take things to another level and stop pretending we don't know better. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Mr. Andre Morrow.
Good evening, Council, everybody. I just came tonight to support you guys. I just wanted to let you know, just listen, look, I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. And the majority, the vast majority of the citizens of Cotati appreciate your service. You're wise, you're kind, you're good people, you make good decisions, and I'm behind you. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, just so you can hear it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there, under citizens' business, is there anyone else? Mr. Barrich.
Thank you, sir. Council, at the last City Council meeting on April 22nd, the police chief unlawfully detained me on my way out of this meeting. You all witnessed it personally. He accused me of calling the council members liars and Mr. Neil Hancock a liar and so forth, but you witnessed it yourself. And the fact is, the Community Voice has reported that the chief has denied unlawfully detaining me outside, informing me that he was going to arrest me if I was audio or video recording him, and that if I ever had the nerve to call anybody in this chamber a liar again, he would arrest me on the spot. Frankly, that's a disgrace to the uniform that he's wearing. It's a disgrace to our police department, and it's a disgrace to my city council and the city. The police chief has shown me at the last meeting he is not fit to be a police officer or wear that badge. He's a complete embarrassment to this town, and in 20 years that I've lived here, I've never seen anything like this. And I've seen a lot. Our police chief is corrupt, and he needs to come clean. The city manager and the city council must refuse to cover up for this man. The police chief has also said that his officers now wear video cameras, so everything they do can be recorded. So we want to see that video recorder and audio recorder from the police chief from April 22nd, don't we? I mean, the mafia could learn a few things from our police chief. Mr. Parrish, you should turn in your badge. Retired Cotati police officer Dan Murphy was absolutely right about the chief. He's out of control. Rumors are running wild that our police department is completely dysfunctional by more than a couple officers. But I didn't think it was this bad. There needs to be an internal investigation into the incident that happened outside, that I was unlawfully detained in your presence, because a few of you walked to the rear of the room and watched it, and when I walked off, you laughed. You laughed about it. Yes, Mr. Landman, you did, sir. If you don't do something about this, I'm going to be forced to take this issue to the State Attorney General and let them investigate it. Now, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. It's really in your hands. Now, we know the police chief does not answer to you directly. You need to call the city manager in and find out what happened here. How this allowed to happen on your watch, and she's responsible. I think the chief needs to throw himself on the mercy of the city council and fess up to what happened and come clean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Mr. Carricker?
This may be surprising, but tonight I would like to thank the chief for a civil, fact-based discussion we had just last night in front of Oliver's. I might point out it's one of the first civil discussions that has ever come my way from any person in this room. In that discussion, I followed up on a discussion we had at a council meeting 1 month ago, where I discussed the difference between the police salaries and benefits in 2008 and 2009 and the present. And at that point, I remarked that after Measure A, which was intended to save the police salaries and benefits are $232,000 lower than they were in the pre-Measure A year. They're about $200,000 higher than they were in the pit, but we're talking about $900,000. And although it was promised Measure A is for the police, for the police, for the police, Chief, you came up on the short end of it. They made you a promise. They did not deliver on that promise. They spent it on a lot of other things. I promised I would bring you spreadsheets tonight from the city's website, all 3 years' budgets. I have them here. I'll be happy to show them to you and to the press. Council, you should know them. I don't know if you look or not. Another interesting fact is, even though it's for the police, for the police, for the police, by my best reckoning, I count no net change in FTEs. It looks to be flat at 18. And Chief, I'd like your professional opinion on that, because there's many different ways to account for FTE, but that's here as well. So we have a record of broken promises the last time a tax increase was asked for by the city. Here's the most recent propaganda piece from the city for your information about Measure A. This is 1 page of a 4-page flyer. And it says the city has 5 priorities: preventing the potential elimination of the police department, preventing and investigating property crimes, maintaining domestic violence response, and maintaining crime prevention services. Chief, it sounds like 4 of those are in your department. So if the city is going to get a $2 million surplus for the next 6 years if Measure A passes, Chief, I want to ask you one thing. You have a long experience at looking at people's faces and knowing who's lying and who's telling the truth. Look at these numbers. Look at these people. Decide for yourself, sir.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on citizens' business? Yes, please.
Greetings again. My main job is education. I'm not interested in feelings. You all took an oath of office to defend the constitutions of the federal government and the state. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits abridging freedom of speech, interfering with the right to peacefully assemble, or prohibiting the petitioning for governmental redress of grievances. Next, let's look at the Brown Act, which is the same as its state counterpart, the Bagley-Keene Act. Government Code Section 5494.3c says the legislative body of a local agency shall not prohibit public criticism of the policies, procedures, programs, and services of the agencies or of the acts or omissions of the legislative body. And that includes the chief and anybody else that works for the city. This leads me to the contemporaneous Facebook posting from George Barrett immediately after your April 22nd council meeting. Quote, almost got arrested tonight leaving the city council meeting after calling a member in the audience a liar. The police chief followed me outside and asked me first if I was videotaping him, he would arrest me on the spot. Then he said he could arrest me for calling someone a liar after the meeting adjourned, and he cited California Penal Code 415. I said, I apologize, Chief. Next time I'll do it during a council meeting where I'm protected by the law. He said, you can't do it then either. I told him that I called him a liar during the meeting tonight regarding a letter he sent to every resident in Cotati filled with lies, and he did nothing. I told him I had been calling council members liars for years when they lie. It's free speech. He told me it wasn't free speech and warned me not to do it again. It's business as usual in Cotati. Let's examine the chief's contention despite his denial of saying this in the local papers. Penal Code Title 11 of Crimes Against the Public Peace. In part it says, Section 415, any person who uses offensive words in a public place which are inherently likely to provoke an immediate violent reaction. Perhaps the city attorney would like to enlighten the chief of certain case law, such as White versus the City of Norwalk, Baca versus Moreno Valley Unified, or Leventhal versus Vista Unified. As noted in White, the body may not prevent or curtail speech simply because it is offensive, and the Ninth Circuit has concluded that the First Amendment does not permit the outlawing of comment, whether it be personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane. My final comments are to respond to Mark Landman and his threats against Mr. Barrich. This is from Wikipedia. A strategic lawsuit against public participation, SLAP spelled with 2 P's, is a lawsuit that is intended to censor, intimidate, and silence critics by burdening them with the cost of legal defense until they abandon their criticism or opposition. The plaintiff's goal are accomplished if the defendant succumbs to fear, intimidation, mounting legal costs, or simple exhaustion and abandons criticism. A SLAP may also intimidate others from participating in debate. A SLAP is often preceded by a legal threat. SLAPs take various forms. The most common, a civil suit for defamation. Isn't that exactly what you said in the paper, Mr. Landman? Yes, it is. Given my earlier comments regarding the Brown Act and his own statements in print, Mr. Landman can now prove just how big a fool he is. I have a pro bono attorney all lined up for Mr. Barrich. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who has not filled out one of our optional speaker cards who'd like to speak? No, seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing under citizens' business. And looking for any direction on any future agenda items. Does anybody have anything for any future agendas? Nope. Nope. All right. No, didn't raise your hand. All right, now we're on consent calendar. We have items 2, 3, and 4.
Move to approve.
I would second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any additional comments or discussion? Nope. Seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Please show that that's a 5-0 vote in favor of the consent calendar items 2, 3, and 4. We're now into the regular agenda, item 5, which is an update on H.R. 29 by Gomez regarding outsourcing of public services and assets. And I'll turn to the city manager for that.
Thank you, Mayor DeLasso. This item is a proposed bill, and it has to do with outsourcing of public services and assets. And we discussed this at not the last council meeting, but perhaps the one before that. And it was determined at that time, based on the council questions and discussion, that Council Vice Mayor Skillman would do a bit of research on this topic and bring it back for further discussion to the council for consideration if you'd like to write a letter of opposition or support for this proposed bill. That concludes my report, and I'll turn it over to Vice Mayor Skillman.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I had been curious when I saw that there was a request from the League of California Cities to send a letter opposing this legislative act, and so I therefore looked it up and printed it out, and was still confused after reading the language of it. I didn't interpret it the same way as League of California Cities, and I know this was also an issue of concern for Councilmember Moore, because he asked to pull it from the consent calendar and put it on the regular agenda. And I know that we were both intending to do that before it was suggested by a member of the public. So therefore, I to present it to you tonight. I made copies of the actual language, and then I also made a copy of the Assembly Committee, and it just lists a summary of it, as well as who voted in favor. The quick answer is that it has been adopted as of April 3rd of this year. It was passed by the Assembly on the third reading. 44 people voted in favor of it, 22 people opposed. And it also passed out of the committee as well. So my understanding, and I know it's a little bit confusing, in the analysis and discussion of our staff report, it got a little confusing, and it was pointed out to me by council that the League of California Cities actually still opposes it. They want to have the cities retain the option of outsourcing, whereas the people who are in support of the legislation are not interested in outsourcing. They're more interested in keeping the jobs local. And it was interesting to me to see who was in support of it. There are a lot of union employee associations that are in support of it. And so I think really it came down to the idea of the legislature wanting local cities to be able to weigh in on whether or not they wanted local businesses to be outsourcing. So if you say you want to be located in Cotati, we want the jobs generated in Cotati, not overseas. So that was my understanding of the legislation, but if the rest of the council wants to go ahead and write a letter opposing it, even though it's already been adopted, I know League of California Cities may still be opposing it, but so far it's been adopted, and we have the power to have a say on whether or not businesses outsource when they come to locate in our city.
So why don't we go ahead and just have some discussion on that? So, Councilmember Landman.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect encapsulation of kind of the problems, especially at local government and probably up to higher government too, in that if you look at any of these problems individually from a certain one perspective and one perspective only, usually it's pretty clear to see what probably the best direction is for you. For example, if you look at from protecting good jobs, salaries, things like that, you might go in one direction. And if you're looking only from the perspective of trying to keep as much legal leeway as possible for local cities, in the realm of local control, you're going to go another way. And this isn't unusual. This is only two different things. Usually a lot of decisions we have a lot more stakeholders than that weighing in and want to go a lot of different directions. And that's the difficult part for us, is we have to sit and look at the big picture sometimes and make a guess at that. And for me, seeing as this is already passed, I'm not sure there's any value for the League in supporting this, and particularly because this is a very general bill. There was, as I understood it, and you can probably tell me better, Councilmember Skillman, there was no specific end result other than a general statement of support. Wasn't that the gist of it? So
Yeah, it's a House resolution. It's not a law.
So I think this is endemic of the type of problems we see all the time, and probably will continue to. So I certainly appreciate the update on it. It's good to see, and I'm sure we'll see more like it.
Mm-hmm. Any comments or statements from this end?
Thanks, Councilman Skillman, for doing the work on that. It was more of an advisory position, and I was just not comfortable with the League of California Cities position on there. It's kind of a moot point now since I've already adopted it, so I don't know that we really need to do anything at this point, but I was in support of this and the concept behind it versus outsourcing at below market wages and lack of benefits and et cetera, and much more in support of something that's going to be more of a living wage and supporting the local community. So that was my opposition to the League of California Cities stance on there. But
Done?
I'm done.
So I have a question. I mean, I'm kind of curious why, looking at support and those that we're not in favor of, where was anyone from Sonoma County? I mean, nobody was listed on this.
Well, I did notice that West Chesborough was one of the co-authors.
Right.
So
Right.
But no, I don't think there was anybody from Sonoma County who.
Yeah, well, I was looking at sort of that list of cities and/or groups and organizations.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I'm just wondering, why. It's kind of funny that nobody. I think Vacaville was one of the closer cities to us here that took some kind of a stance on that. And there is, there's a lot of these that come through, and in fact, I pestered the city manager with an email that I got from the League of California Cities that had a list of like 8 bills that we'd like you to take a stance on. It's like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. So I'm going to go back and reread those and look at the timing, and as far as future agenda items, try to bring those back and see what kind of a stance, if any, that we may or may not want to take on some of these upcoming bills. There's a slew of them going through the system. So, yeah, I was just kind of curious if you had heard why there was no real feedback from anybody in Sonoma County. But
I have not.
okay, all right. So, so there's really no action that we're going to take on. I'm sorry. Yeah, but there's no action at this point in time. All right, let's go ahead and open this for public comment. See if anybody has any comments or questions. I'm seeing a lot of crossed arms, so I'm going to take that as a no. We'll go ahead and close the public comment. And
Mr. Mayor, question for the...
yes, please.
In terms of, there are a lot of these sometimes, whole slews will come out of League of California Cities for you to look at. And one thing you use perhaps besides where it is in the legislative process also, if it's gone through local legislation committee, because I don't think this one even got through our local ledge, actually. I don't think we even have the recommendation for that. So if you don't see that, it's probably not something that the council's, that there's a lot of pressure at least to weigh in, particularly if you have a busy agenda, a lot of other things to assess. So that might be something to use as a bit of a filter here.
Yeah, I noticed that Marin County's mayor and council member group took a stance on it. I forgot what side they were on, but that's fine. Sure.
Mayor, well,
yes, please.
I would sort of echo what Councilmember Landman said. I sat on a webinar today for another assembly bill that's out there, and I think a lot of these just end up percolating and things happen. And the one that they were talking about this morning, I won't get the exact number right because I can't remember it, but anyways, it'd been sitting around for 2 years and it'd been going back and forth. So some of these things like take on a life of their own, and oftentimes it's the amendments that get snuck in there that kind of really perks the interests of either the League of California Cities or the North Bay group, any of those. So you never know at what time they might all of a sudden pop their little heads up.
And on any of those, too, I can give you the website that I use that makes it a little bit more user-friendly to track down the bills and the language and where they are in the process.
That would be good to probably forward to the city manager, and then she can send it to all of us. That would be a good thing. Great. So are there any further comments on this? And, okay, we're just going to take a pass and go on to item 6. And this is the library amended, there I go, turning the microphone off. Library amended joint powers agreement, the JPA, and library commissioner appointment process. And we'll turn briefly to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor DeLasso. In 2012, a review of the Joint Powers Agreement for the libraries was initiated in light of challenges at the library and changes in demographics, technology, and finances, and the JPA had not been looked at since 1975. All of the cities in the county agreed to participate in the review, along with the Library Commission, and formed the Sonoma County Library JPA Review Advisory Committee. The committee began meeting in October 2012 and is unanimously recommending the attached amended joint powers agreement to the county and all cities for approval. It is very similar to the agreement that was presented recently to the council. There are a few changes, and I would turn it over to Mayor DeLasso, who was our representative to the advisory committee, since he is very familiar with all of the details of this particular committee and their deliberations, and I believe he attended at least 15 long meetings on this subject, so he's well equipped to discuss the details.
Plus the executive committee meetings, too. So you can double it.
And the executive committee meetings as well. Thank you very much.
Highly, highly enjoyable. So I think the direction that the council gave me for that last meeting, I shared that, and the only real change, as it turned out, from what we were agreeing to, or at least he gave me direction to vote in favor of, was would Santa Rosa and the county each get 2 votes. And there were several cities, including ourselves, that fought that pretty hard. So a compromise was reached, and that compromise became 1 vote for the city of Santa Rosa, even though they have 3 libraries, 1 vote for the county of Sonoma, even though they have the greatest preponderance of people who are paying taxes into this system, and then there will be 1 shared vote that will be selected by the Santa Rosa mayor and the Board of Supervisors chair. I mean, it'll come through their two bodies, of course, and they will select one joint position, if you will. You know, after 15 months, I thought that was an okay compromise. I didn't want to take that several months into the future. And one thing I will point out under the analysis and discussion, which is page 2 of 3, and go down to about the 4th paragraph that begins the cities of Petaluma, Santa Rosa, etc. About halfway through that, there is a sentence that says, "Council may choose to appoint a library commissioner from among its members or direct staff to recruit and fill." And I want to tell you that the among its members, meaning one of us, was highly discouraged, and from the public more so than the body. There was only one individual in the county who has done that, and speaking on behalf of that foolish individual, because that was me, it's nearly impossible to do. I mean, the library commission becomes not a full-time job, but there's volumes to read on a monthly basis. And in this particular case, you're going to have what was 7 commissioners is going to be 11 commissioners, a lot of them probably new to the system, and having to learn everything from the ground up, not to mention a new library director that was just hired as well. So I would just say, as we go to discuss, I'm not trying to influence anybody, but I would just say, as we discuss this appointment filling process, that selecting amongst this membership here would not be wise. It becomes really a huge, huge workload, aside from everything else that we're doing. And it was, like I said, it was highly discouraged by current library staff from the past that have retired, and members of the public that came to all of our meetings. So just to give you some background on that one. Everything else, that there's a list of 10 items of changes. I don't think we had any disagreements on any of those, and they were all pretty much incorporated into this new draft JPA. So to the best of my knowledge, we have to make a decision here, obviously tonight, on this process, on the process of selecting and appointing a commissioner. I think we have until July, sometime in July, to do that. And then I believe on Monday, August 4, is the actual signing ceremony of the JPA, be very symbolic, and the first meeting for the new commission. So that's kind of the tentative schedule. We're done with our meetings. I will say that, again, there were 2 types of appointments for each of the jurisdictions. One is a 2-year term, one is a 4-year term. And just so everybody knows, the way that that was done is the county council passed out chocolate bars to all of us, and we unraveled those bars, and if you had a golden ticket in it, you got a 4-year term for your jurisdiction. I obviously didn't get that, so we got a 2-year term for Cotati, which is fine. It was highly structured process and very on this high intelligence level, just so you know how county government works. But anyway, so I don't know, do you have... It was quite the Willy Wonka thing. Do you have any questions or comments at this point in time? Yes.
I do have a question. So if they want generally citizens to do this, how many citizens are on the current board today?
The entire board is made up of citizens from the different jurisdictions. The city of Santa Rosa and the city of Petaluma each appoint, and then the other appointees are from the 5 Board of Supervisors. So that's what makes up the commission at this point in time.
Okay, and so I know you were on the commission.
Right.
But
I was on there before I was elected.
Before you were elected. Okay, so that's sort of telling, I guess. Okay, that makes more sense to me, because I wasn't sure whether we were losing a whole lot of institutional knowledge and we were going to replace everybody, the new director, the new commission, you know, and because if we went from all elected officials to citizens and then no one kind of knew, there would be like the blind leading the blind.
No, and that's a very good point, and thank you for reminding me. So the current commissioners that are on Many of them, I don't think all of them, but many of them have expressed an interest in remaining on for that particular jurisdiction. Should they not get appointed, that's another story. For example, the chair right now is Tim May from Petaluma, and, it's looking like that, he would be a favored person to represent Petaluma to go on that commission. And also, they basically have accountability back to each of the jurisdictions, too. So whoever is appointed from Cotati will be reporting back to us, will get some guidance from us on some of the larger decision-making processes that are existing. So, yeah, so that's a good point, but there will be some institutional memory there.
Good, thank you.
We hope.
That helps.
The appointing jurisdiction, do they have any say if there's a concern regarding the fulfillment of that duty or the direction that that appointee is taking in their representation on that commission?
We went around with that discussion. I cannot cite where in the JPA, but I think, I don't want to confirm that it's in there, but I think there's some method of relinquishing power or something like that. Yeah, I think there was a way, and I'd have to look in the JPA. I can't
Moving the
recall.
appointment if need be.
Yeah, I think there is a way to do that.
Yeah, I thought I saw something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in there, but I can't swear to it. That's
Almost as a safe word.
Yeah. Well, it was a given. I mean, I think every jurisdiction was in favor of that.
And then the only other question I had is when you have Santa Rosa has a vote, the county has a vote, and then you have a shared vote. And if the county and Santa Rosa are in opposition?
Can't answer that question. It's up to them to figure it out.
It's going to be interesting how that works because they're going to cancel each other out.
Well, don't they have to, they elect somebody or they appoint somebody
Right.
to make the vote. So it's not two votes or a split vote. That one person decides how they're going to vote.
They just happen to be
But they have to
representing
representing
the two
both.
jurisdictions.
In theory, they'll have a foot in both.
So...
But it's one person.
Okay. Well, yeah, I had a feeling it was one person. I just thought it might be a little difficult for that individual if there's a issue that they...
That'll be up to them to
issue.
work out. Yes. Not our concern. Any other questions or comments?
No, I don't.
Councilmember Landon.
I want to make sure I understand this correctly about this, the governance issue. So it's easy to understand. Santa Rosa has a vote. The county has a vote. That's very clear. I understood that there's one more vote, and the decision on which way that vote is cast is made in concert by both the Santa Rosa mayor and the Board of Supervisors chair. Is that how this works?
That's my understanding.
Okay. You're probably going to need more paragraphs explaining exactly how that's supposed to work, because I think there'll be small atomic explosions from time to time trying to make sure there's actually an agreement there. You might have wanted to parse that into decimal points of a vote or something.
And I think county council had been keeping this 2-year list of sort of parking lots that basically become bylaw issues. And so maybe that is something that we decided would be addressed in the bylaws as opposed to in the JPA itself.
So you wouldn't have to open up the whole JPA to actually deal with that? Usually for
Correct.
votes, you'd have to open up the whole JPA.
Well, which votes are you speaking
If you were wanting to do anything that addressed that voting issue and touched
No, I
that
think-
would probably be a JPA issue.
I think that may become a bylaw issue, and they're going to work that out. And it's going to take some time. But there was a huge parking lot for the bylaws. You have a comment, City Manager? I'm sorry.
I just had something to add regarding the appointment process for the joint appointment by Santa Rosa and the county. They're not going to decide together how that person votes. They only have to decide together who they appoint.
Right.
I see. So they're actually getting a person who will then, in theory, vote autonomously.
Right.
Oh, sure.
That's clear for me.
That
That's
wasn't
a
In
little
the same
sorry.
way that others would vote autonomously.
Excellent.
Sorry that wasn't clear enough.
At any rate, despite have some curiosity how that may well play out, I think that's a very good compromise, and I know you had a lot of hours in doing this, so appreciate the effort.
My pleasure to serve. Vice Mayor, any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and open this up for public comment. Anybody has any comments on the ever-stimulating Library Joint Powers Agreement document? We wrote one in 1975, and here we are in 2014, so it'll be another good 30 years before you see another one, maybe? Hopefully not. Actually, it's a 10-year. Why don't I just be quiet and see if there's anybody who would like to speak to the topic? No? Are you guys thinking about coming up, or no? No? Okay. You're still thinking. I got a gavel in my hand. I need to do something with it. Okay, fine. We'll go ahead and close public comment. So what we obviously have in front of us tonight is something I have agreed to with the guidance that I've gotten from everyone up here. And honestly, I probably didn't, I wasn't Mike McGuire's friend for a couple of meetings from some of my comments about, I felt very strongly about the city of Santa Rosa and the county each having one vote and no more, and we needed to stop playing these political games that have occurred in other situations where everybody's wanted additional votes, and I just said, no, that's enough. And I'm okay with this compromise because, you know, part of the reason is, let's just move forward. We've come this far. It's kind of a minute issue. Let's just move it forward. But everything else that that we had discussed as a body here was fine and was pretty much accepted by all the other jurisdictions. So you see what we have in front of us. And then we still have to discuss also the appointment process, which we didn't do. That means I'm going to have to open it back up for public comment. But
I thought that was just an or as far as the...
No, it's an and. We have to decide on the process. I mean, what's recommended, I believe, from staff is that we do the same appointment process we do for our other committees and commissions at this point in time, which makes perfect sense.
And I think that that's, if I read what it says in here,
Where are you?
rules of appointment adopted by each member's governing body, which is probably where that comes into play if we want to remove someone, is
right.
what our rules are. And so I guess the process includes the rules for appointing as well as removing, correct? Yes, I'm seeing nods from over there.
And I also neglected to say that attachment 3 here is a job description, too, which I'm sure you've seen. That was submitted by the county, which is good. And that's something that staff will use when they go out to, you know, do this recruitment. And I would say to talk it up, you know, amongst everybody you know who has an interest in library. If they want to find out more about the position and the time commitment, I'm happy to talk to anybody about that because it is a serious time commitment, but well worth it, too. So,
And that was useful that that was in here, too.
yeah. Yeah.
Mayor DeLosso?
Yes, sir.
Just looking at this, first of all, very supportive of the motion to approve. Secondly, in terms of appointing a library commissioner and hearing the concerns from Councilmember Moore, I'd suggest that we could let staff, as they've suggested, go ahead and start a recruitment process, and we just use the same rules we use for planning. That gives everybody input into the decision, and I believe that also gives us the tools for monitoring and also essentially has the serve at pleasure part built into it. That might be a good direction to go.
Okay. And should we have 2 separate motions on this? Okay, so...
and if you were ready, those would be the motions I'd probably give you one
That was
after the
really
other.
great. That was great, but you're going to have to say them again. So let's start with the first one, which is related to the approval and of the JPA.
Certainly, I'd like to move we'd approve the library amended joint powers agreement and authorize Mayor and Library JPA Advisory Committee member John DeLosso to execute the agreement.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, show that's a 5-0 vote in favor for the amended JPA. Thank you very much. And the second item.
Let's see if the microphone's still on. I'd like to move that we provide direction to staff to commence a recruitment process and use the same structure that we use for planning commissioner picks
Okay, there's a motion.
for the library commission member.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Excuse me, could I get a little bit of clarification on that process? The planning commissioners, how do you envision the choice? Because if I recall correctly, the planning commissioners are recommended individually, each of you recommends the planning commissioner, and then you all ratify?
What happens is, I'm thinking of the ratification process. We can all certainly individually recommend. I'd certainly be open to any help from staff, because we want as many people in the community as we can have involved in this.
Okay.
But specifically, and thank you for that, because
I
that's
know
important.
I know we modified it recently.
I'm focusing on the ratification process. It brings it back to council instead of an individual choice.
Okay.
And then secondarily, having that serves as the pleasure part.
So all applications will be received, when we'll make this clearer in the advertisement.
Good.
That where the applications will be received as opposed to council members individually bringing people.
Yeah,
forward. Okay.
I'm thinking that's what you meant. Not that we would be individually bringing
No.
nominations, but...
We can help drive the process by working in the community, but no.
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So if I may, Mayor Delasso, the application process will then be narrowed down to those that are determined by staff or by the mayor? So if I don't see a pool of 15 people rushing to fill this position, but if you have 2 or 3, how do you envision looking at that? Maybe through a individual Q&A or...
Or I turn my head to staff and say, what are your recommendations on something like this?
I think in this situation, we would bring forward the applications for all of the qualified applicants. So in this case, it would probably be any applicant who lives in Cotati. And we would bring those forward to council for review at a meeting, and you would decide if you wanted to ask them questions. And similar to, I think, perhaps the situation with council appointments, where you might interview a number of people in a council meeting, and the staff don't filter those applications in advance. I don't see any reason for staff to do that, because I don't think there's not a lot of criteria for this. It's really just be a resident of Cotati, and I don't see that you'd get so many that you would require us to filter them and kind of narrow it down. If we do get 20 or 30, then perhaps we can revisit that, and the council might wish to select a subcommittee that would authorize the mayor to filter that group down. But I think generally we could just bring all of the applicants to you to be interviewed in a council meeting.
Mayor?
Yes, please.
I guess with one caveat, and that's one that comes up often, and that's that they are available and that they can meet the time commitment, because that time commitment one tends to trip people up on lots of these things. So.
And we'll make that clear in the application.
One question for staff, Mayor Delasso. I just want to confirm this has to be somebody that lives in the city limits of Cotati? A Cotati resident?
I'm assuming that it does.
So it has to, somebody that lives within the jurisdiction.
That narrows the field, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And do they have to have a library card?
No. Okay. Not a prerequisite. Okay, just, I know we have a motion and a second, but let's just hold on for a second. So I'm looking at the calendar as far as council meetings go, and, the last June meeting is June 24, and then we go to July 8, and then July 22. So the July 8 meeting, we have to have someone appointed, because July 16, all commissioners appointed. So that's the county's timeline. So that's basically 4 meetings out from tonight. So that means, we would probably maybe have, I'm just guessing, like maybe a June 30 deadline for submission of applications. I don't really know. That would only give staff like 3 days to put that all together before the meeting. So anyway, you'll figure all those details out, but I'm just saying there's not a heck of a lot of time.
Well, at least there's a job description that can be
Yeah,
used.
and
Staff doesn't have to make a job description
That's
up.
right. And I think it would be
Which is
very helpful to people reading that too. So, okay, so there is a motion from Councilmember Landman.
Did you want to open it to public comment?
I'm going to, yeah. You did second.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to take a vote yet. We're going to open this part, as far as the application process, for public comment. I'm going to go ahead and close that public comment. So again, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, show that that really long, lengthy motion made by Councilmember Landman is our direction for staff. Thank you very much. And we are now going to City Manager's report.
I do have several report items this evening. First of all, I wanted to let you know that our Cotati Police staff assisted at the recent Petaluma Butter and Eggs Parade, and this is the first time that our staff participated in that parade. And as you know, our police staff primarily our reserve officers and cadets and so forth assist other jurisdictions with their parades and events, and they also in turn Sebastopol and I believe Petaluma will as well send volunteers to Cotati for our events, such as Kids Day. Our police staff will also be assisting at Grad Night on May 30th at Rancho Cotati High School, and Cotati Police Officer Marcos Perez is assigned to the event. The cost of our officer attending will be funded by the Alcohol Coalition Group administered by Sonoma County, and we are a participant in that coalition. Also wanted to let you know that one of our officers, Officer B. Gallo, was honored last Friday evening. The Rohnert Park Cotati Rotary Club conducted an event recognizing local police and fire personnel as well as community volunteers, and Officer B. Gallo was selected by Chief Parrish as the Cotati Officer of the Year. Officer Gallo recently achieved status as a field training officer here in Cotati, so she is now training our new reserve officers. Chief Parrish tells me that Officer Gallo has arrested more suspects in both 2012 and 2013 than any other officer in the department, and he also told me that she has a great attitude, but all of us who know B already knew that. So congratulations to Officer Gallo. Also wanted to let you know that SMART is planning to close East Cotati Avenue at the railroad tracks in the first half of June in order to build the passing track across East Cotati Avenue, and I'll talk more about that at the next council meeting. And we haven't heard any more news from SMART regarding the tree, so our tree is still there, but we don't know what will be happening with that yet. Also wanted to mention the Santa Rosa Plain Groundwater Community Forum, which will be taking place in the Rohnert Park City Council chambers on May 21st at 6 p.m. Various stakeholders have been working on developing a voluntary groundwater management plan for the Santa Rosa Plain Groundwater Basin, which extends from Cotati in the south to Windsor in the north, Sebastopol in the west, and Oakmont in the east. The groundwater management plan is based on the most extensive study to date on the Santa Rosa Groundwater Basin by the USGS, and the forum is intended to familiarize the general public with the groundwater management plan, and I believe that Mayor DeLasso and our city engineer Damien Obid and Councilmember Harvey as well will be attending that forum on our behalf. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that we received several very artistic and thoughtful thank you letters. I have them here from the Thomas Page second grade artist whose work is hanging in our hallways at City Hall. And I just wanted to read a couple of these to you. I think you'll enjoy them. The first one: Dear City Hall, thank you for putting our pictures up on the walls. Thank you for the food. Thank you for letting us meet the City Council. It was great. Sincerely, Aiden.
I want that one framed.
Oh, you'll like the next one even better.
Okay.
I'm guessing. Dear City Hall, thank you for hanging my picture in the hallway, for giving us some food. I was so excited to see the mayor. I am going to go again. Sincerely, Krista at Ms. Peterson's class.
Is Krista in the audience tonight? No. Darn it.
So anyway, these are on display in our hallway if you would like to read them. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may.
This is really embarrassing because I didn't write it down. Yes, I did. Maybe I'll just talk to you on the side about congratulating B, and maybe like at our next meeting or something. That presentation was made by the Cotati Rohnert Park Rotary or something, was it not? Okay. So, I know they've already presented that, and that's great, but I think to bring it to people's attention would be good, too.
Possibly we could have Officer Gallo come to our next council meeting to be recognized by the council, and we will be introducing a couple new reserve officers at the next meeting as well.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Anyone? No? All All right, let's move on to city council reports. I'm going to look right tonight, since I change it up all the time. Councilmember Moore.
I don't think you change it up all the time.
I change it up once in a while.
Just to follow up on the Remith information, you got the presentation with Mark Ferguson regarding the rate increases, and then in the consent calendar, you authorized the ancillary cities to have a vote on the board. I didn't know if you guys had any further questions on that. And Mark had requested a representative or somebody who might be interested in serving on a subcommittee to work with the potential fully self-insured program to see if that's a viable option for Weymouth. And I did send my name back to him that I would be interested and that I would talk to Micah, excuse me, if he was interested as the alternate. And that was the update on the Weymouth.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm really going to switch it up. Councilmember Landman. See?
You are indeed.
That's right.
So let's see. First and foremost, I want to share just a real great story about Sonoma Clean Power. This was a big month for us, our last meeting. This is the month we flipped the switch, where we're actually serving power to people. We have live customers who are actually in action. And you can picture, especially as an administrative officer, if you were running a meeting like that, and the whole team is, oh, we're flipping the switch, the first thing that our CEO, Jeff Cyphers, thought is, oh, I need a prop of a switch for our board to get up and flip. So he started, and remember, we're a rather large enterprise. There are certainly funds to do important work, but he started getting prices from prop-making companies for this, and it was thousands of dollars. And the Puritan in him came out, and he complained and said, we're a government agency. We can't afford to spend money like that. And they said, well, of course, we can give you a better price. And it was still thousands of dollars. So I'm real pleased. As busy as Jeff Cyphers is, as many hats as he's wearing right now, with everything going on, he went over to Lowe's, and on his Saturday or Sunday morning and the weekend in his garage, made a very nice little prop for, what did he say, $57 and some odd change himself. And the good news is he flipped the switch, the lights came on, and we didn't short the power out anywhere up Administration Hall, which I was very happy to see, too. So I thought I'd share that, because that gives you an idea of the people, the quality of the people we have working, where they're coming from. I think that's a good thing to let people know about. So that's my report for tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councilmember
Are we
Hart.
going back here?
Yeah,
Okay.
table tennis.
So on April 23rd, I attended the town hall drought meeting with Damien, and a lot of the folks in Rohnert Park were envious, jealous, I don't know what term to use, because they kept bringing up the Cash for Grass, because Rohnert Park doesn't have it and we do. So we got a lot of kudos for that program, and the folks in Rohnert Park want it too. So that was really great for us. And then on April 30th, I went to the North Bay meeting over in American Canyon, and gee, guess what the subject was about? Yet again, water. So they had a really good panel of the different areas. And while the different areas have, you know, different water sources and concerns, everybody really is looking to see what they can do because of the drought. So it was really a good panel discussion. And it probably could have gone on for a lot longer, and people had, you know, some good questions. But it's good to see that it's on everybody's minds, and everybody's, you know, trying to do the best that they can. And then today, I don't know that anybody saw it, but there was the bag fair today, and it was over in the Katati room. There happens to be one in Santa Rosa tomorrow, but who knew there were so many different kinds of bags you could have? They had, vendors had brought in purposely for really businesses to be able to, you know, purchase different kinds of bags. But there was probably 20 different vendors of all different kinds of bags made out of all different kinds of things. I think the most interesting one that that I picked up because it was kind of soft and squishy. It was made out of Tyvek, which is the stuff that, you know, they wrap houses in, but it's really strong. But there was burlap and different kinds of paper and lots of recycled goods. And I mean, it was just incredible, the different amounts of ones. And also there was the company in Santa Rosa, and I will probably massacre their name, Bijan, and they are making the cloth bags here for Sonoma County that we're purchasing a certain amount of, and they're made from salvage nylon. So it's local people making them here, but it's like run-offs of salvaged material. So the material is really sort of recycled too. It's stuff that was going to go really in the dumps. So that was really great. So anyways, I attended that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Skillman.
On April 23rd, I participated as a customer with the Drought Drive Up at Ashley Home Furniture, and that was a lot of fun. They actually still had a limited number of timers that you turn, and the beads actually fall up that count down the time instead of falling down like a sand counter. The little things that get me through the day. I also attended the Chamber Mixer, which was a great deal of fun, and was coordinated by, and they're all gone, several people who were sitting in that corner. So anyway, it was a really nice event. Then on, well, April 29th, we had the budget study session, but you were all there. May 4th, the Daily Acts event in Cotati Park, I was actually going to attend, but it was canceled because the high winds were interfering too much with the work they were trying to do, and so they're going to reschedule that event, and hopefully I'll be able to go then. Then lastly, on May 5th, and again, they're gone, I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and I'm very proud and happy to announce that we have 2 new businesses that have been welcomed to Cotati. One is China Village, which is going to open at the Old Star Restaurant location, and the other is SRT Collision Works, which is going to be over in our industrial area doing painting and collision work. So just very excited that we've got all these new businesses who are coming to our town. And that's it.
Great. Thank you very much. And I want
Mayor,
to thank.
can I make one comment on her comment?
Yes,
that
of course.
the Drought Drive Up, that was so successful that in all the locations they actually ran out of stuff quite early. It was very, very successful. So from what I understand, all the locations ran out of stuff. So people really got it and went by. So that was a good thing.
Excellent. And I do want to thank Vice Mayor Skillman for running the logistical part of that April 29th budget study session. And I will just say that, you know, participating over the phone from somewhere in the world is a challenge. I know Councilmember Harvey has done that in the past. And I would also say that I don't know what phone was used that night, but some people in the room, it was really almost impossible to hear them. You know, when I did find out one of those commenters was Councilmember Landman, it was fine that I missed, you know, what was said, but...
There was 3 hours lost. It was all good stuff.
It's all good.
Gems.
So again, I guess depending on whatever system we're using, I would just caution people to either, you know, get closer to it. Those people that were close, Councilmember Moore, City Manager, you know, I could hear you guys way easily, and you pretty well too. And I mean, I got the gist of it. I didn't want to. I'll stop. Okay, fine. And the only other items I have is that there will be 2 ribbon cuttings this week. Friday evening at 6 p.m. is the, I'm not going to pronounce it right, but the Yongiwa, but I thought it was Yongawa, but maybe I spelled it wrong. That'll be a ribbon cutting this Friday at 6, and then at noon Saturday is the Wi-Fi wash. So I'll definitely be attending the 2 of those, and obviously would welcome any and all to come to those events. And with that, is there any final comments from anyone? All right.
If I could, wait, sorry.
You got to be quicker than that.
I know. That's why I had to do the. I just wanted to state for the record, if anybody has any questions about what happened at the last council meeting, please ask somebody who actually attended and was present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.